Welcome everybody, welcome to The Hobby Musician. Now you're joining us on a very special day because this is our first show of our brand new second season. Now when we wrapped up season 1, we set out and took a few months to make sure that we lined up great content for you guys in this second season. We have got artist interviews, we've got lesson series for guitar players, for bass players, we've got gear reviews, we've got gear demos, we've got it all. So in the process, we also set a pretty ambitious goal for ourselves. We here at the channel are really pushing to try to hit that 1,000 subscriber mark during this second season. So tell your friends, hey, tell your enemies, tell anybody that you can to join us in the Hobby Nation and help this channel get out to more and more hobby musicians just like you. All right, now let's get on to today's episode. Now today's show is going to be a quick lesson on the pentatonic scale. So if you were looking at that thumbnail and you kind of were curious about the weird math equation that doesn't seem to make sense, in that picture the 3 plus 2 is meant to evoke the penta or 5 pentatonic scale. Now I'll start by saying just about every other channel has got some kind of lesson about the pentatonic scale. But in our lesson, I want to show you guys a lesser known or a lesser talked about method for learning some patterns and shapes that can kind of help get the pentatonic scale under your fingers in a different way. Now, it's very important to point out that when you talk about patterns and shapes, you can find a lot of different opinions out there. You can find some channels where people are dead set against learning or relying on shapes and patterns. Some people are very, very focused on music theory is the only way to learn music, and you need to always be thinking about notes and what notes are in a key. And I think that there's a lot of benefit that you can have by spending the time to study music theory and learning the notes in a scale and learning the different increments and all the modes and everything. That's definitely a good skill to have. However, my argument in this case is simply that sometimes patterns and shapes are the first step towards that. So with that being the case, there's a reason that certain music theories show the intervals between notes in a certain scale or a certain mode. Well, that then translates to the neck of a guitar or the neck of a bass, and those translations are the patterns and the shapes that you can end up learning. So in this lesson, we're going to look at a pattern as a first step towards some more music theory understanding. Now you might be thinking about, why did I have my math equation 3 plus 2 equal the number 7? That's not what those two numbers added together equal. Well, broadly speaking, so don't rush down to the comments and tell me all the details about how this is wrong. Broadly, generally speaking, scales tend to be 7 notes. If you think all the way back to the classic do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. Now that second do is just a repeat of the first do. So really there's only 7 unique notes in the major scale. Well, you can take those 7 notes, and if you start to change the relationship between them, how far is it between the first note and the second note, the second and the third, and so on, you can start to get other scales. You can get minor scales, and you can get way into the world of modes, which we're not going to cover in this video, but we'll definitely do it in another one. So that 7-note idea is where we really get a lot of the understanding of a scale. But when guitar players and bass players are looking for some of these other approaches to the scale, a very popular one, as you know, is the pentatonic scale, where we remove 2 of those 7 notes to leave us with 5 that we ever play. Now, the reason I have this weird math equation is because even in playing, if you take a solo and you use a pentatonic scale, or you create a bass line or a riff using the pentatonic scale, playing those 5 notes in a musical context still can evoke all 7. And so that's really where I want to draw your attention to. I want to really reinforce this idea that even though we may learn a pattern that's only selecting 5 out of 7 notes to play, we are still creating a musical context that hints at those last 2 notes. So that's where kind of the math comes in. All right, well, this pattern that we're going to talk about is going to require some figures and diagrams as well as an instrument. So I'm going to get this switched up and we'll continue the lesson right now. Okay, well, we are all set up here. Now, even though I'm holding a bass guitar, I just want to say that everything we talk about, all of the patterns, all of the shapes, still apply to acoustic players, electric players, no matter what. All of this really is applicable to whatever type of instrument you play. Now, we said earlier that tons and tons of videos have covered the idea behind the pentatonic scale and shapes and patterns and places that you can put your hand. But one of the things that I've noticed for years and years of combing through all of these videos, I've noticed that typically lessons will focus on keeping the hand still and static in what I call, if again, from my perspective, I look at it vertically. So my hand is just going up and down the strings vertically, but it's staying in one place. For example, I'll put a figure up here of what I'm talking about. If we were to keep our hand still and play a major scale, all of the notes, not a pentatonic scale, a lot of methods would have you start and you would learn the scale this way. You'd play basically 1 fret per finger. So you'd play your first note, we pick an A, so A. Now if I keep going, you can kind of see I was moving up and down the strings, but my hand never slid up and it never slid down. And you can see from the figure, all of the notes that I need to play are contained. I can find those notes on those strings without moving. Now, for us today, we are going to omit 2 of the notes. So for us, if I were to keep this same static mentality, so just playing vertical kind of shapes, we're going to remove the 4th and the 7th note out of this. So we're going to play that first one, and you'll see it up here in the figure. We're going to play the root note, then we're going to play the 2, the 2nd note, and the 3rd note, but then we're going to skip the 4th and go right to the 5th. And we'll play the 6th note, and then go right, skip the 7th, all the way up to the octave there. So coming back down, there we go. And you can see that this plays all of the notes in that major kind of pentatonic scale, but it keeps your hand static. Now, what I want to encourage you to do is to learn a different pattern. And this pattern is going to require us to start moving our hand up the neck and down the neck when we come back down, because I think it's very important to start to get comfortable. Once you find that you're getting comfortable with the shapes and patterns in one place, the next step on the journey is to get comfortable moving those shapes and patterns up and down the neck. So, taking those same 5 notes. Now I say 5 because again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I don't count this one. I don't count that as a new note because that is just the octave of where we started. So that's kind of repeating the pattern. It would start a new grouping of 5. So I'm going to take that pattern and now I'm going to change the figure up here because we are going to start moving those same notes, but we're going to move them up the neck. We're going to find different places to play them. And this is the first place. So I'm going to start with my first finger on the root just like we did. And I'm going to use my 3rd finger and I'm going to move a full fret up and play the 2nd note. Now that's identical to what we used to play, what we played just a minute ago. But this is where it changes. Instead of going to the next string, I'm going to slide, and this is key. Every time I play a 3rd note on a string, I want to encourage you to slide and use your 3rd finger to play that 3rd note. So there's 1 note, a full 2 frets up, 2nd note, 2 frets up, 3rd note. So 1, 2, slide, 3, 1, 2, 3. Now if you notice, this note that we're playing, that's the same note that we used to play when we kept our hand static, except we found it in a different place, and so we moved up the neck. So my hand is now higher on the neck. Well, where do we go from here? Well, the next note in our scale, we need to play the fifth. We've played the 1, the 2, the 3. We're not going to play the fourth interval of the scale. We're skipping that, and we're going right to the 5. Well, the 5 is now on the next string down. So with sliding my third finger up, you'll notice the reason I suggested that is because it positions our first finger perfectly to move a string down and now play our fifth note. So by going 1, 2, 3, that's the 3 notes per string, I'm going to go to the next string in the same fret that I used to play my second note. It's the same fret as the second, it's just up a string. There's 1 note, and then the fifth goes 2 frets up to the 6th. 5, 6. 1, 2, 3. Don't play 4. 5, 6. Now this is, it's right in line with where I played my second and third note. My fifth and sixth note are shadowing it down a string. But that's the second note that I've played on that string, so I'm ready to move to the next string up and play 3 notes again. So the pattern is a 3 note, 2 note, 3 note, 2 note, 3, 2, 3, 2, just back and forth, just like that. 1, 2, slide up for 3, 1, 2, now I go to the next string. 1, and that is our octave. So we finished the first cycle. That's the first time through the pentatonic scale. But the beauty of patterns is patterns repeat. If it was okay for us to play the root note 2, 3, if I played 1, 2, 3, well, if that's the same note as the root note, I could play 1, 2, 3. And if I go 1, 2, and the third note, I slide with my finger, it now positions my first finger for the next string up to play 2 notes. So we have been following a 3, 2, 3, 2, 3, 2 pattern, and as you can see in the figure, it keeps moving our hands incrementally up the neck. We're playing all of the same tones as we were down here, but now we're playing them by sliding up, and then we can continue. So it helps move our hands around, and it gets us more used to that sliding. So that is this initial or basic 3, 2, 3, 2 pattern. So part 2 of this is, well, what if I need a minor shape? What if I'm playing a song and it's kind of got that darker feel or that bluesy feel, and this scale, if I just pick notes in this scale and kind of play a riff, it sounds very happy. Now there's nothing wrong with that, but it's going to sound happy. So just a generic groove, if I'm playing just again, just picking notes out of that scale, it sounds very happy, poppy, bouncy, whatever you want to think, and there's nothing wrong with that. But many of us also are kind of wanting to play along with minor chords and grooves like blues and classic rock grooves. Well, we can adjust our pattern to make it minor. So instead of picking the major notes out of the scale to make a major pentatonic, now we're going to switch it over. We're going to change a couple of the notes, but the beautiful thing about this is it just takes our pattern and essentially reverses it. So for the major scale, remember we started with 3 notes on a string, 1, 2, 3, and then we went to 2 notes, 1, 2, and then we went to 3 notes, 1, 2, 3, and then 2. So we have 3, 2, 3. We're going to reverse that pattern. And we're going to shift our hand just a little bit. So we're going to keep it in A. We we've got this A kind of center, this A tone that we've got going on. But instead of playing 3 notes, starting on A and playing the 3 notes, to make it minor, I'm going to change the figure up here, and you can see that we can slide. I'm actually going to change the finger that I start the A. So I used to start the A with my first finger. I'm now going to slide that finger down and use my 3rd finger to start on A. Now this is kind of like, I want you to get in your head, this is what I envision. I envision myself having finished playing the 2 notes. So if my first finger was to play the note lower, the G, then that would have been 2 notes, and I would have finished on that. And after we play 2 notes, we go to the next string and we play 3 notes. So 3, 2, 3 becomes 2, 3, 2, 3. So by pretending like I finished my 2nd note, I'm ready to move my finger up to the next string. 1, 2, 3. That was my 3 notes, and we always slide our finger on the 3 note string. Then I move up. I finish the 3 notes. I need to play the 2 notes on the next string. So here's the first note. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, and that's our octave. And now we're ready to play it again. So remember, that was our 2 note string. So we come up, and we still have the 2, 3, 2, 3 pattern. But you can hear that grouping of notes is now it has a dark kind of a minor feel to it, because that pattern uses the notes in the minor pentatonic scale, where the other pattern uses the notes in the major pentatonic. So if we still had our band vamping on A, if we used this pattern, we would get a totally different vibe. So that is a little darker than our that just sounds happy because it's got all those major notes, and the other one has all those minor notes. Now I hope you enjoyed that lesson, and I hope you can take those patterns and really apply them into your own practice, and hopefully kind of start building that comfort level, moving your hand up and down the neck. I want to thank you for watching, and as always, until next time, play on, my friends, play on.